people of Ghana, is your Nigerian girl pleasure, bringing you political news in this wonderful morning. And here are the happenings that has actually really been happening in Ghana. And as always, we won't lack in giving you all this news as President John Mahama, Professor Jen Nanopoko, and everyone in NDC are actually making headways to actually restructure, reset, and do everything to better Ghana. Please switch.
First of all, what do you make of the two statements and what Nana Asafo-Adjei is telling us? You agree with him?
Well, what an exciting time we are in. I think the ranking member of the U.S. Senate's Foreign Affairs Committee was completely out of line when he made the point that our foreign minister should be focused on paying U.S. companies. He being the ranking member, and he's been a chair of the committee before, he would have known that the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, first of all, is not the finance minister. And so if there are issues of, finances and obligations to U.S. companies, it would have to be treated from the back room through the U.S. Treasury Department, and our Ministry of Finance. So he was completely out of line when he attacked the foreign minister. It was nothing but a personal attack. And I think I applaud the foreign minister, Okudzeto, for the clap back. I call it bold diplomacy. We live in an era where people in the West feel, they can speak to us condescendingly and treat our officials with disdain and get away with it. So Okudzeto's response reminded me of incidences in the 50s and 60s. And I'm sure you would remember an incident in October 1957 in the heat of the civil rights movements and racial discrimination in the U.S. Our Minister for Finance, Komla Gbedema, had been refused service in a restaurant in the United States of America, the Howard Johnson restaurant. I mean, we protested so vehemently to the extent that the U.S. president then, President Eisenhower, invited our finance minister to the White House within days of the incident. Okay, if he had taken this so lightly and would have said, the U.S. is such a powerful country, and so we can't protest vehemently, you can imagine how it would have looked on us. And indeed, that, protest from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 57, led to many good things happening for our country. Again, you could remember Nkrumah's own run-ins with the U.S. administration, and he's written copiously about that in his book, Dark Days to Ghana, where he had been seen to be very, very critical, of some U.S., policies in Africa and the East and the Global South. So this is not entirely new. What is new is the fact that it's playing out on social media, and it's played out in a way that shows our foremost diplomat as very, bold representative of our country. Okay. Having said, let me make the point that there's so much at stake, right? Ghana and the U.S. enjoy a very, very positive, trading relationship underpinned by mutual economic interest and strategic cooperation. I didn't hear you say this, but Ghana is the third largest U.S. export market in sub-Saharan Africa. We sell a lot of gold, a lot of cocoa and oil to them as well. This is a trading relationship that is worth over $2 billion. So I disagree with the ranking member of our, parliament that is going to have dire economic repercussions. I don't think the Americans would want to throw, more than $1 billion worth of trade relationship with Ghana, and neither would Ghana want to throw that away. So the relationship is cast in stone, but it doesn't mean that we should allow them to show us disrespect. We should allow them to be very condescending towards us. Yes, Ghana owes the US $251 million. those companies, and these are, U.S. companies, Twin City Energy, Cosmos, etc. Now, if you listen and if you read what the Jim Rich wrote, it's clearly at the back of his assumption that Ghana was paying the Chinese a lot more, and we owe the Chinese in bilateral debt of figures between 1.7 billion and 1.9 billion. All right.
QuickBooks gives me the superpower to
false claims that Ghana is busy paying the Chinese and not paying the Americans. Actually, my checks from the Ministry of Finance clearly indicate that not a peso since the assumption of this administration has been paid to the Chinese. That's far. I mean, the finance minister was in China yes, but he was there to renegotiate, the debt we owe the Chinese, and it's quite a lot of money. A lot of these debts, were taken for infrastructure development of our country. Of course, we have obligations as a country, to honor our debts to our foreign partners, to companies that operate in our country, companies like Cosmos, etc. But the ranking member of the U.S. Senate also knows that Ghana is in dire straits, currently undergoing economic challenges. And so it's not like the money is sitting at BOG and we are paying the Chinese and not paying the Americans. The money is not there, and if the money is not there, we would have to walk a thin line.
All right.
That is why the finance minister as well has engaged American officials. If you recall, he was in the U.S. as well. I think the last one was about his second visit to the U.S. So Jim Rich could have found a proper way of addressing this than to use Twitter. I mean, he should have known, having been, a chairman of the committee and now a ranking member, that the Minister for Foreign Affairs does not pay foreign debts.
So does that justify Samuel Okudzeto's approach also, using Facebook to respond to him?
Well, I mean, there are no hard and fast rules. He could have used back channels, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the same channel that the ranking member of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations used. And for me, what it shows is that there's more transparency. Now we're beginning to see, what happens in the area of diplomacy. Instead of 50 years from now, we'll be reading it from the classified files.
Okay.
It's playing out, and it helps in, encouraging transparency. And I couldn't have.
Okay, thank you so much. Hold it for me, Raz. Let me come to Ishmael Hlovo. I want to pick your thoughts on the two statements also, and also the language used by our foreign, affairs minister, as well as Jim himself. What do you make of it? Many are describing the response as undiplomatic. Do you see that also from the James angle also? Kindly unmute so we hear what you're saying.
Are you still with me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so like I said.
Oh no, Raz, can you hold for me? I want to engage Dr. Ishmael Hlovo now, and I'll let you come in. Yeah.
So I think that in the first place, the ranking member was also a little bit out of order. He went too far in attacking the foreign minister's tweet. But equally, the response of our foreign minister was equally too aggressive, if you look at it. In the first place, what's the interest of the U.S. senator? His interest is to ensure that American companies that the Ghanaian government owe is paid, and therefore he decided to employ the diplomatic pressure, which is normal in diplomacy, where you sometimes can put this kind of pressure on countries and see that your interest is attended to. That having been said, if you go behind the scenes in terms of the debt that we are owing, you realize that some of those debts are owed to U.S. pension funds, and some are owed to the American Treasury. So it's public money. So he is a public senator defending the interests of his public. Now, equally, if you ask what is the interest of Ghana that the foreign minister will want to defend, the interest of Ghana here is that, one, you want to defend your sovereignty, which is appropriate, and two, you want to still project Ghana as a friendly nation committed to paying its debt. Now, if you put these two interests at play, I would think that defending your economic interests and projecting Ghana as a very friendly country committed to pay its debt is more must have priority over the issue of sovereignty, because you have to ensure that in as much as we are in financial stress, we are in economic distress, you still have the need to create the impression that the environment is conducive for further foreign direct investment. I don't think that this statement that the foreign minister put out achieved that aim. This statement, instead of debunking what the U.S. senators say, reaffirm the fact that it's as if we are accepting that we are paying the Chinese while ignoring U.S. companies, because there's nothing in this statement that actually puts out the fact that Ghana has not paid or Ghana is paid evenly. So it is safe to assume that what the U.S. senator said is true. And if we are going to talk about morality internationally, it doesn't really exist. The point is that the only morality of the senator is the morality of his state. That is the interest of his state and the companies emanating from his state. And of course, if you are going to deal with foreign policy in this era with morality, you are going to get a lot of things wrong. And instead of focusing on the substance of the message and responding to it, for instance, how much have we paid so far since the administration has taken office? If you have not paid it, make it clear. And that gives us something more detailed to deal with. So the response was, for me, it was overly aggressive. It was more of grandstanding and showmanship than concrete diplomacy. It doesn't give you what you actually wanted to see. Yes, it's good he wants to respond, but when you are responding, give us the facts of the issue. Give us the details of what Ghana is doing, so that in trying to respond, that everybody knows that, well, what he says is not true. The response virtually give the indication that, yes, we have agreed that we are paying the US, and also give the indication as if we are back to the days where we owe debt and say that we unilaterally will pay at our own convenience. That is not what is appropriate at this point in time, because you need the US as much as you need the Chinese.
You think this is going to have some diplomatic implications, as well as issues with finance and investor confidence also?
I think that in terms of investor confidence, that doesn't order well. But in terms of diplomatic relations, I think Ghana-US relations, although currently is facing a lot of challenges, is still in a very safe hand, and I don't see this. But these are part and parcel of actions that are quickly deteriorating the level of relation we have with them. Of course, US, Ghana, there are so many aspects of our relations that must go on. We have differences, but we'll iron them out. Of course, if you look at what the US and Ghana do together in terms of trade, in terms of investment, in terms of security, there are so many aspects of our relation that will keep us together. But this unnecessary public show of brickmanship, of public showmanship, doesn't really help us to get things that we want. Yes, of course, he as a foreign minister, he's right to respond, but I think that the response was overly aggressive.
Okay, you say it's public showmanship. You are an international relations expert. What would you want to advise? I mean, tell him in terms of advice. Subsequently, if issues like this come up, how should he respond then?
He has. I would say that he has the right to respond, of course, to some of these issues. But then let him take his time, put out details of the position of the country, get detailed information. But if you involve trade and other something like this, putting out the right figures will communicate clearly where we are or on some of these issues. And I will also say that, you see, foreign policy essentially is based these days more on diplomacy because of the kind of international system you find yourself. So you must apply a lot of tact in what you do. being overly aggressive, trying to show power that I don't think we have, just because you want to assert your sovereignty, is not always going to help. So I think that it should, in as much as it can go off social media, it should exercise some restraint when it's responding to issues like this.
All right. He also raised key issues in his response. He talked about reparations, and are these not legitimate concerns of every African?
This is legitimate, but then the issue at stake has nothing to do with reparation. The senator has a choice either to defend reparation or not. That is moral. So that's what I say. For morality, let us leave morality aside. The only moral code for a statesman is the interest of his country. In this case, what's the interest of the U.S. senator? The American companies that have invested here, whose money is at stake, should be paid. That is his sole interest. As for reparation, it is also your own interest to push. And whatever form you choose to push it is up to you. So I believe that while reparation is a legitimate claim you have to make, that does not constitute a moral reason why he will not push you to see if he can use this means to. You see what he even seek to do. Our response have made him to achieve it, because he wants to start a conversation around U.S. debt. So we are talking about U.S. debt because he has used that channel, and we have responded, and we have to talk about it. You understand? So
it was a trap set for us, and
yeah, perhaps we could have just. But if you have even brought more details, I'm sure that then people will have bought a lot more into our argument. Now, but as I said, if you talk about morality, for me, international relations, simply the best morality is the interest of your state, no matter how you achieve it. Either people think that it's immoral or not, it's inconsequential. You can talk the morality all you can, but then it's about result. The result is that he wants to get Americans to be paid as much as the Chinese are being paid.
But of course, our foreign affairs minister is also pushing for our own interest, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I give you two interests that were at stake in his response. The first interest is the sovereignty issue, which this release we have addressed. The second interest is the economic issue. Of course, if you say that we are Nkrumah's Ghana, yeah, and all those rhetorics, and that we will pay it at our own, virtually saying that we will pay the debt at our own time and pace, then you are virtually signal to investors of not being so committed to it, and then you are also somehow giving future investors not the confidence they need to invest in it. So in that case, you have achieved one of the interests but damaging to the second one. That is what it is. So okay. Yes, if you are defending interests, I think that in this situation, what sovereignty is important, what is more important is the economic issues. And in fact, the foreign minister, I from my understanding, part of the reason why he was in the US was because he was going to present Ghana's recovery program to the Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs or so, and also meet the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs and discuss issues of immigration as well as the issue of the debt. So the debt issue was part of his mission to the US. So if you have gone to address all these issues, all right, and then there's somebody who pretend not to see, if you are coming to respond, you respond in a manner that communicates to all of us that the issue is not like you're not addressing it, you're addressing it, but then it is not up to maybe the rate at which they want their money. Your country is not in the position to honor them. Okay. Or you present the fact that indicate that you are not prioritizing the Chinese over them.
Okay. Well, for me, let me go to Professor Obadele Campbell. If you're on, you are, a scholar when it comes to African studies, and if you monitor social media, when this story broke, people from across the continent have been commenting on this matter. I understand Professor Obadele is not ready now. But let me come back to you, Nana Safo-J. We know this reparation issue that our Foreign Affairs Minister has raised is not the first time. I mean, former President Akufo-Addo himself raised these concerns. And so what do you, the minority, make of that concern from the Foreign Affairs Minister, the concerns he made from your side? What do you make of it? Legitimate, right?
Thank you. Quick one. Let me say that, like I said earlier before other speakers came in, we had people in a fight. With the one having a clear strategy in mind, and the other do not really have a had a strategy. So that's why I said that when you want to go into a fight, like Sanchu said, you must be ready and prepared, know what you are going to sacrifice for a win. And I came back to say that the content of the response of the minister should have been well thought through, discussed, well researched, detailed, to give a certain indication and a certain path.
I think we are losing you, Nana Safo-J. If you could reposition yourself a bit. Okay, I think we've lost him there. Ras, are you still with us?
Still with you. And if I may come in, I completely disagree with my brother Ishmael Hlovo, whom I agree with most of the time. Look, Ablakwa achieved four things: assertion of our sovereignty by invoking Nkrumah's legacy and rejecting foreign dictation, reinforces Ghana's independence. It also resonates with national pride and historical anti-colonial sentiment. That is very, very important. The second thing he achieved with his response was, linking the U.S. criticism to the, under-addressed issues of slavery, reparation, etc. The third thing, which he clearly mentioned in his response that, all the other speakers have glossed over, was the fact that he did emphasize that the Mahama administration inherited a debt and is managing it through a recovery program, that the U.S. is clearly aware of. So that has been addressed, and then, there couldn't have been a better sign of bold diplomacy, than this one. His direct and forceful rebuttal, clearly challenges the U.S. tone. And what it signals is that, look, you can't treat us with disdain. Ghana is willing to stand firm. We are not seeing ourselves as a junior partner in this. The relationship is mutual. The U.S. benefits from bringing things here. We benefit from selling cocoa, gold, oil to them. So we can't behave as if we are, junior partners in a relationship. And that has been one of the bane of countries in Africa, asserting the authority and negotiating clearly in a tone and a manner that is very, very forceful. And that is why I told you what happened in October 1957. If we had not protested vehemently, Eisenhower would not have invited Bedema to the White House. That culminated in a lot of very, very exciting things. The issue of reparation, the U.S. economy actually thrived on slavery. Its agriculture is built, on slavery, and they had imported 400,000 slaves from Africa, and they had enslaved millions in the U.S. They still benefit from the labor of men and women who were taken into servitude. And these are very genuine issues that ought to be addressed by the United States of America. And let me make another point about the person who had sought to personally attack the foreign minister. For me, that is what I see it as. It was nothing but an attack on the person of the foreign minister, with what the ranking member of the U.S. Senate, said. Now, this is a senator who has gained notoriety, for championing the cause of lobbyists. He may have been a senator, he may have been representing, his people, but look at his track record. Look at the current legislation he's pushing in the US.
Right.
Legislation that is nothing but racist, that seeks to, push the US farther and farther away. So that's the kind of character, we're dealing with here. And I wasn't surprised that, he would make that disrespectful or condescending remarks about our foreign minister. As we may have pointed earlier, the foreign minister could have decided to deal with it, through the back door, through back channels. There's nothing wrong with that strategy.
Okay. And
equally, there's absolutely nothing wrong with dealing with it publicly.
Okay, but Raz, before I go to Ishmael Lover, when you're going into a fight, like...
Please do well to like, comment, and follow. Put on notification bell so you get all our news one by one. Thanks, my people.